An endangered language is one that may no longer be spoken in a few years or a few generations if current trends continue. This means that substantially fewer or no children are acquiring the language, and that the number of new speakers is less than the number of speakers lost each year. Even languages with millions of speakers should be regarded as endangered if their speaker base is declining in this way. Indeed, half of the world's languages are currently seriously threatened. So why should we care about endangered languages? Well, languages reflect much of their speakers' culture and experience. Those of you who've been present at this conference, and indeed all of you who live in the South, know that Southern language, Southern English, reflects much of your culture and experience. And believe me, this is true for all of these Indian languages as well. A society's knowledge and expressions are inevitably lost with the loss of language. Data from little-known languages can be important for scholars in a variety of fields, as I mentioned on the handout. Linguistic diversity is one of the most visible and important aspects of cultural diversity, so language loss diminishes mankind's cultural diversity. Differences among languages provide certain linguists with valuable insight into how cognitive processes are realized in language. Such differences are an important part of biological diversity. A language's passing thus reduces the diversity of human expressive power. But the most important people who are affected by the loss of a language are the members of that ethnic group. I have met many Indians whose languages are critically endangered or already lost, and they feel the loss of the cultural connection and knowledge very deeply. Margaret Mulder talked to us yesterday about that, relative to her experience with the Creek language. Unfortunately, in a few years or a few generations at most, it is likely that all the American Indian languages of the Southeast will be extinct. They will have no more speakers. The potential loss of these languages is indeed a serious concern, something that's dramatically upsetting to me. So while introducing you to the linguistic structure of these languages of the Aboriginal Southeast in this talk today, I hope I've shown you how interesting and unusual these languages are. Believe me, I've barely scratched the surface, and convinced you that the indigenous languages of the Southeast are a valuable and critically threatened part of Southern heritage. Thank you.
We have time for a few questions. Is it on? Okay. I just wanted to thank you for using the picture of the Choctaw Code Talkers. It has a picture of Mitchell Bob, who actually identified as his niece. Evangeline Bob is a dear friend of mine, and also she's not a young woman, a president of the Choctaw Code Talkers Society, struggling very hard to get recognition for them. I'm going to give this to her to show that you care, because they are so swallowed up by attention to the Navajos, and I appreciate every little bit of publicity you can give to them, so thank you for that.
You're welcome, Marcia, and I think that's, I really think that the Choctaw Code Talkers are wonderful. I just wish we knew a little bit more about exactly what they had done. Like the Navajo Code Talkers, you know, they were, well, maybe exploited is too strong a word, but they were used by the Army and really not given sufficient recognition. You can go to the Choctaw Nation website if you're interested and read quite a bit about what's known about them, but I just wish it gave more details of the actual details of, you know, their conversations.
Other questions, comments? I was wondering, how many years did you say it might be probable that the languages would become extinct?
Well, this really varies from language to language. So my favorite language, Chickasaw, is now spoken by nobody under the age of 50. There are a few people under 50 who have no, words, but they aren't fluent speakers. And most of these people over the age of 50, although most of them had children, they didn't pass on the language to their children. And so they are now grandparents, or as in the case of my collaborator, great-grandparents. She's hoping any day now, I mean, not, sometime in the near future, to become a great-great-grandmother. And, most of these people suffered horrible indignities at school. They were punished for using their language or really strongly encouraged not to use it, so they didn't see fit to pass on their languages in general. So, you know, I'm horrified to say it, but Chickasaw will not be spoken by anyone fluently as soon as the youngest speakers die. There are, as I mentioned, several languages that are still being learned by children, but not very many children at all. And the pressures on those children, you know, not to really learn the language well are considerable. So I think we would assume that in, you know, a couple of generations at most, there will be no speakers left of any of these languages. Cherokee is certainly, you know, the language that has the most speakers and has children learning it, but even Cherokee probably will not be spoken, you know, if I say it an outside in 100 years, but I think that's a very long estimate. And some of these languages are now spoken only by a few people. So Wallace told me yesterday that the number of Caddo speakers is, you know, fewer than 5 or so.